Someone recently asked me if Ohio State is scared to play teams in the Pac-12. Your gut response to that question might be absolutely not. But upon hearing the announcement that Gene Smith made just a day ago, you might get the feeling that the Buckeyes are nervous to play teams on the West Coast.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is a Thursday, February 16th in the year 2023, and this episode is brought to us by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. During this episode, we will discuss if the announcement Gene Smith recently made is a sign of things to come in the future and Power 5 schools that I want the Buckeyes to play in the near future. But before we get to any of that, Gene Smith decided this was the proper time to make an announcement about the future non-conference schedule that Ohio State will play in 2024 and 2025. The Buckeyes had scheduled a home-and-home series with the Washington Huskies, one game being in 2024, the other being in 2025. That home-and-home series was canceled. The Buckeyes pulled out of the series. Gene Smith, in his statement, talks about the respect he has for the athletic director out there in the Washington Huskies athletic department. And it was one thing to read the statement, but reality, pulling out of this, it's odd, man. It just feels weird. I was somebody that has always looked forward to Ohio State playing Power 5 teams during their non-conference slate. Ultimately, honestly, you can play better Power 5 schools in the non-conference than you will a lot of times in the Big Ten regular season schedule the Buckeyes play. Because outside of Penn State and Michigan, occasionally Michigan State, the Buckeyes' schedule is weak in the Big Ten. So they need these non-conference games to boost up their schedule, to boost up their strength of schedule, because the Big Ten is not a good football conference year in and year out. Michigan State had a good year. Mel Tucker got paid. Michigan State went back to playing Michigan State football. Indiana's bad. Purdue is not good. Yeah, they're a little bit better, more average, but they're not good. Iowa, Wisconsin, you get the picture. Ohio State needs these non-conference games to boost things for them in their schedule, and it will help them in seeding for the playoff. Now, we all know there's going to be an expanded playoff in the near future, and so the Buckeyes winning their conference championship is great because, one, you bring a trophy home, but you ultimately get a bye in the college football playoff once it expands to 12 teams. Well, how about you be a top 4 conference champion, and you boost your chances of being in the top 4 by playing a tougher non-conference schedule? And Washington is a school that they're not one of the upper echelon of the sport, but that's a solid football program, and you want those types of teams to play with you. Gene Smith, I'm going to read a quote from him about the cancellation. Ohio State does have to pay a penalty for canceling this home and home series. In his statement, he discusses how much he discusses the penalty and how they're able to pay for it. He already has all the money mapped out. Here's Gene Smith, a quote from him in a statement in regards to the Buckeyes canceling this series. Quote, "I have the utmost respect for the University of Washington and for Director of Athletics, Jennifer Cohen, and this was a very difficult call to make. As a result of the cancellation, we will add an 8th home game for the 2024 season, affording us the opportunity to have the funding to pay the penalty and guarantee for that eighth opponent, end quote. The Buckeyes have to pay $500,000 for canceling this game. Now, that's less than what they would pay if they hosted the Huskies. And I do believe they were going to host the Huskies in 2025. The 2024 game, I do believe, would be in Washington State, in the state of Washington. Play the game, man. You need this more than you realize. Play the game. Now, you may say, Jay, that eighth home game that the Buckeyes are playing in 2024, they had 8 home games in 2022, 6 home games in 2023. They'll go back to 8 home games in 2024 and 2025. Okay, great. They're going to come back, and they ultimately could add a home game with USC or UCLA. Okay, that's great. That's a conference game. Like, that's something that's going to happen no matter what. You might play them. You might play them at home. You had a home-and-home series with the Washington Huskies, a team that is getting better. They're going to improve over the next few years. You need this. You want to know how you can better prepare yourself for the college football playoff, especially when it's expanded? Play tougher non-conference opponents. Hello, it ain't that hard. It ain't rocket science. This stuff works. Play tougher non-conference opponents. What does Gonzaga do in basketball? Gonzaga is in a mid-major conference. They know the competition in their conference is not the competition of the Big Ten or the Pac-12 or the ACC or any of the big-time, I think it's Big Six conferences in college basketball. But you find Gonzaga playing Kentucky and playing all of these schools, playing Kansas, playing a tough non-conference slate. Why? Because Mark Few realizes something. He realized that in conference, the competition is going to go down. The competition will not be what it will be in the non-conference. And if I want to better prepare myself and my team for the NT2A tournament, I have to prepare in November and December for what we plan on doing in March, and that's making a deep tournament run. The Buckeyes, I get it. Lost to Oregon. Already rescheduled that because one of those games got canceled. Cool. Whatever. Should have kept this. Now, 2025, I understand the Buckeyes would have played Texas and Washington in the non-conference. That's not happening anymore. Okay, cool, whatever. You need this game really bad in 2024, really bad in 2025. You better prepare the team for the CFP in an expanded state. Didn't happen. Not a fan of this move at all. Not a fan. I don't know if Ryan Day got in Gene Smith's ear or if this was all Gene Smith or who from the football side was saying, let's pull out. I am not sure. But what I do know is this. This ain't a good look, man. This ain't a good look at all. Buckeyes better come out firing and being a different team because you need these games to prepare for the playoff. And ultimately, the Buckeyes pull out from that series, pay a penalty, $500,000. They got that already. Like, you don't need the Buckeyes don't need another home game to pay that penalty. They already got that. Already got it in the bag. Here's Gene Smith. Oh, another home game will help us pay the penalty. If you didn't have another home game and it was a road game, you're going to have the funds to pay the penalty no matter what. That's something you say. You got to cover your bases. Can't get past me. I already understand you got the cash to pay the penalty, no matter if you have a home game in 2024, an eighth one or not. Okay, got to get off that. Yes, that really annoyed me. What didn't annoy me is what this might be a sign of in the future. Not for Ohio State, but for the Big Ten Conference. What is it? We'll discuss that next right here on Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every day. Make sure you check out our brand new podcast, Locked On College Basketball. It provides everything you need to know about college basketball, and it can all be found in one place. Plus, hear from big-name experts, insiders, coaches, and players. Locked On College Basketball is available on YouTube and wherever you get your fine podcasts. So this whole pulling out of the home and home series with the Washington Huskies, it's not a good look. I'm not even just saying like me personally wanting the Buckeyes to play Power 5 teams every year in the non-conference slate. I mean, up the upper echelon, the good ones. I mean, the prestigious football programs. It's just not a good look, man. It's going to be a hard Southern Miss. You're trying to win a national championship, and you got, Southern Miss is the best non-conference team we're going to play. Not good, man. It's not good if you want to go for a deep playoff run, which will be harder than it has been for any other team in college football history. But we have all seen all the rumors. This, what I'm about to say, is not a rumor. Texas and Oklahoma will be a part of the SEC in 2024, a year earlier than expected. They have discussed and they have found that there is money they found out the proper amount of money that is needed to leave the Big 12 early. They're going to pay that. They're going to get out of the Big 12 and join the SEC in 2024. The SEC will not be the game of the week on CBS. That belongs to the Big 10. However, you're going to be on ESPN getting all the money. And Greg Sankey is all about getting all the money, getting more teams in the playoff, and getting more money for those teams in the conference because of postseason success from SEC schools. So Texas and Oklahoma are going there. There have been rumblings for a while. Washington, Oregon, maybe Cal, maybe Stanford, maybe a couple of those schools will be joining the Big Ten Conference in the near future. And that's why when it comes to this announcement here, that Ohio State is not playing Washington in 2024 or 2025, I wonder if Gene Smith knows something in regards to Washington possibly being a part of the Big Ten and being able to fast track that move and really quickly. Honestly, I think it's rare to find schools that about 18 months prior to joining a conference, you're going to join the conference. Maybe 12 months, whatever it is. I wonder if Gene Smith knows something, because if him pulling out is one thing, I wouldn't be shocked if over the next few months we hear, Washington and so-and-so will be joining the Big Ten Conference in 2024. And that is something that makes sense, because that home and home series ultimately would need to be replaced, or they could just change it up to a conference game. But that contract there, that money that was there, it's kind of null and void, because it's a conference game. And the conference game, the structure of the money is a whole lot different than a non-conference game. So if this is a sign of the future, that this announcement that Buckeyes won't play Washington, but Washington joined the Big Ten, I'm cool with it. I will say this, though. This whole stretching the Big Ten Conference out, stretching the footprint out, which has been going on since Penn State joined the conference, I believe, in the 90s. Whenever you find, I've talked about this numerous times, whenever you find conference realignment, you're also going to find a changing or an alteration of how a national champion is founded and how you create and how you get to the team that wins the national championship. Back to the 90s, Miami, Florida State, Penn State. A lot of these schools were independents. All of a sudden, when they start changing how they find the national champion in the sport, teams start flocking to conferences. First, Miami was a part of the Big East. Then they joined the ACC. Florida State went to the ACC. Penn State was the independent. They joined the Big Ten, went from 10 to 11. Now the Big Ten has 14. Will be 16 soon. So I do think before the birth or the start of the 12-team playoff, you'll find more conference realignment. At the Big Ten will probably have 18 teams. The Big Ten has 18. Expect the SEC to go after more. You could go after South Carolina. You could go after Clemson. You could go after Georgia Tech. You can go after Florida State. You can go after Miami. I mean, there are so many schools in that portion of the country that will keep the standard of elite football programs and great traditions in the sport, will keep that thing high. You know what? This could be a sign of the future, and I wouldn't be mad if it was, because I do think Washington adds something to the Big Ten, especially in football and in the non-revenue sports. If they bring Oregon along with them, Phil Knight money is different. Who is Phil Knight? Nike. Phil Knight. The creator of it, that Phil Knight money is different. That's great. Oregon basketball? Okay, cool. Oregon, don't they normally host some NCAA track and field events? Okay, great. These are a lot of things that will help the Big Ten in things that are not revenue sports. Yes, the travel will be crazy. Think about travel for football or basketball. Think about the travel for a baseball team or for the rowing team or for other things that are out there, other sports that are played, the soccer team, the volleyball team. Think about all those things. It would help the Big Ten. With stretch their footprint. Great market out there, over there in Washington. Go for it. If you want to keep spreading this thing out, depends on who the new commissioner of the Big Ten is, with Kevin Warren no longer being the commissioner of the Big Ten Conference. Go for it, man. Maybe it's Gene Smith, and he knows, man, hey, I'm going to help Ohio State out before I'm up out of town, before I get a job with the Big Ten as its commissioner and just altering the schedule. Now, I would not be mad if you're going to go coast to coast. Go to Washington, man. Go to Washington. I'm also a fan of not just adding schools, but kicking some schools out. So if you add Washington and Oregon, but you want to keep at 16, you can. I mean, Rutgers, sorry. Maryland, sorry. You can kick them out of the conference and allow them to go somewhere else. Where would they go? Probably have to go to a Group of 5 school. I mean, I don't think the ACC wants either one of them. Will they join the Big 12? That's a hike, but here we are with conference realignment. It don't matter where you're geographically located. They're going to come find you. A Buckeyes pulling out of this series could be a sign of things to come, and it could be a sign that Washington is going to join the Big Ten Conference sooner than you think. But with the Buckeyes changing their non-conference slate in 2024, it made me think about schools I would love to see the Buckeyes play in their non-conference slate. I have 5 schools. 5. You'll get to hear all of them next, right here on Locked On Buckeyes. Sports betting is now legal in Ohio, and Locked On has a perfect show to help new in-season gamblers. Download and subscribe to Locked On Bets for daily picks and analysis wherever you get your fine podcasts. So this is the type of thing that I really enjoyed doing when I began podcasting back in May of 2019. It was just these kind of lists. It's just discussing things that I love. The fan that I am of this sport. I love seeing the top teams, programs, tradition-rich schools playing each other in the non-conference slate. I love it, man. That's one thing that drew me to the sport, was seeing Texas play Ohio State and Ohio State play USC and seeing Arkansas play Texas. I love this stuff, which is why when I made this list, I normally try to keep them by conference: SEC, Big 12, ACC, Pac-12. I normally try to do that. And you'll see why things are the way they are right now with this list. So I have, I think I said 5. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it is 5. I'm just going to go from the southern portion of the state, of the country first, and you'll understand why I pick the schools that I am. One specifically for recruiting purposes. One is because I just love the environment in a home-and-home series with this school. Another one, you'll understand why when we get to them at the very end. But I would love to see Ohio State play Oklahoma, a home-and-home series. Oklahoma, It just makes sense. It just makes sense. Now, I was going to go by conference, but it was kind of hard with Oklahoma being in the Big 12 this year, the SEC next year. So I'm just going to say Oklahoma. No matter the conference, independent conference or SEC or Big 12, doesn't matter where they are. I want to see the Buckeyes play Oklahoma again. One, I want to get the bad taste out of my mouth after Baker Mayfield planted the flag on the field. That was not fun for me to watch or you to watch either. But imagine what it's going to do to the sport when all of a sudden you get a big weekend. You get all week 2, and you get this: Oklahoma, Ohio State. Oklahoma comes to Columbus. The Buckeyes travel from Columbus to Oklahoma. Sooners and Buckeyes, 2 of the blue bloods in the sport, in my estimation, the way that I categorize and I classify blue bloods. Ohio State and Oklahoma are in that conversation. They are in that exclusive group. Put them on the field together. And I know this isn't going to happen, but if you can get a 10-year rotation, every 10 years, these schools play, I'm here for it. I am here for it. And I think college football fans would be as well. The next one is a SEC team now, and it will be an SEC team in the future, the Florida Gators. When I was a kid, the Swamp was special. Steve Spurrier, the old ball coach. A little bit later, you got Chris Leak. You got Tim Tebow. I don't know why it took me so long to think of his name. Urban Meyer was down there. It was just special, man. And this is one of those that I don't think we have seen. I can't think in my lifetime of time in Ohio State and Florida played outside of the BCS National Championship game where if Ted Ginn Jr. did not get hurt, the Buckeyes maybe could have made that competitive with him on the field, but Florida was still the better team in that. I want to see them play a home-and-home series. Come to Columbus, go down to Gainesville. People keep saying SEC teams don't come up north. This is a great way to make that happen. The next 2, just like the last one, they're in the Sunshine State. The next one is specifically for recruiting, the Miami Hurricanes. Think about how much talent myself and John Garcia Jr., who is Locked On's football recruiting insider, discuss from Southern Florida. And John says recruiting players in Southern Florida, those South Florida kids are different, man. Different mindset, different approach to the recruiting. They're just different. Well, how about you go to where they are? They might be on an official visit to the Hurricanes. All of a sudden, the Buckeye train rolls in, messes up that Hurricane's path. The hurricane that was blowing into that was at Coral Gables, that gets knocked away because the Buckeyes are so good. And on a massive recruiting weekend for the Hurricanes, it turns into numerous commits to Ohio State early in the college football season. That's a great way to get recruits. And I do think that's something that the college football world would love to see. Not just us, the entire college football world. 2 more. One's Florida State. If you're trying to get me to go to and say, what's on my bucket list? 5 stadiums I want to go to in the sport, Doak Campbell Stadium is one of them. This is another one. How many times have you seen Ohio State and Florida State play? I haven't looked it up. I didn't look it up before making this list because that didn't matter. How many times, if you think about it, how many times have you seen in your lifetime the Buckeyes play the Seminoles? Probably not many. Probably not many at all. And if I was to make a 10-year rotation and I could get 5 schools non-conference, Florida State's in that list. Also, recruiting. It matters. And playing games in the Sunshine State, even as the away team, it can help you get recruits down there. Last but not least, it's the team that Ohio State just canceled a home-and-home series with, the Washington Huskies. Just make it happen. Just make it happen. Now, the only way you can't do this is if they join the conference. The announcement, the cancellation, could be a sign of things to come. Maybe Washington doesn't know what Gene Smith knows. And Gene Smith's like, look, y'all going to be a part of us soon anyway. So how about I help us with our scheduling for that season? We're not going to keep you as a conference. If you're a conference team, we still got to have another non-conference opponent. But just make it happen, man. Make it happen. Washington Huskies, you go out there, Buckeyes, you see how wild and crazy that fan base is, how good that football team is going to be down the road. play them. Make it happen. We're out of here, guys, on a Thursday. That was fun. I might do more of this tomorrow on Friday's show. Not sure yet. What would you guys like to talk about? I mean, I tell you, I got a notebook full of stuff. But if you guys have ideas that you want to hear on the show, slide in my DMs on Twitter at JStevens07. The DMs are always open. Email me. The inbox is always open as well. JStevens317 at gmail.com. Come at me. Let me know what you guys want to hear discussed here on the show. We will filter in some of your thoughts and questions on future episodes of Locked on Buckeyes. Thanks for making Locked on Buckeyes your first listen today. For your second listen, check out our brand new podcast, Locked on College Basketball. Experts Isaac Shade and Andy Patton bring you everything you need to know on and off the court. Plus, hear from big-name experts, coaches, and players throughout the basketball landscape. Locked on College Basketball is available on YouTube and wherever you get your fine podcasts.